Warning: this video contains opinions. To all coaches, we ask that you don't take our opinions so seriously and that you just play your game. And to all fans, we ask that if you leave comments, allow them to be constructive and not aggressive or destructive for the sake of telling us that we are wrong. We get it. We know that we're about as accurate as a weatherman. Here in the GBA, we thank all fans and viewers for their continued support. Thank you, and enjoy the video. What is up, all you GBA time people? This is Tom with me, as always.
Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar.
And we're here doing your post-draft power rankings. Now, as always, we go here each week doing this, getting hate and mixed reviews, but
I
we're
mean, I
still
don't know.
doing it.
People hate you more than they hate me. I'm not gonna lie.
I said we, assuming it just meant me, but I know. So we're here, power rankings. This should be fun. This season has a lot of good competitors, a lot of returning, very strong teams, some new teams that I'm very excited to see how they do in this format. And what do you think, Kelly?
I think this is going to be the best season of the GBA yet. 110% the absolute best.
What a great way to say it. I'll let you start off. Who's your number 16?
My number 16 rank is Nips and the Long Island Reggie Rockies. Now, actually, before we get started, should we say a couple things?
Whatever you want to say, man.
This draft or this this power rankings list has nothing to do with the player. This is looking strictly at the draft. So while Miguel has a team, Miguel doesn't own this team anymore. We're just looking at the draft itself because otherwise it would be very biased and people would be automatically be at the very top. Not mean.
Let's say that one more time. This is based solely on their drafts. Some people battle better than others. We've seen that. We're going to see that. However, this is solely based on their team structure and how we think it'll mesh throughout the 12-week season.
So, with that being said, number 16, I did have Nips in the Long Island Reggie Rockies for a couple different reasons. The main reason why I strongly dislike his team is that his walls are very limited. Like, while he has amazing walls in Mega Slowbro and Chansey, they're very beatable because they're basically his only walls outside of maybe Drapion and Gligar has a stupid 4 times weakness to ice, so you just slap on like an ice punch, and even physically defensive, it's gonna hurt a lot. And with Chansey being another one of his main walls, once it gets the Eviolite knocked off, it really can hurt it as well. And having 2 walls that are Eviolite users is very crippling with like wall core synergy. That was my main thing.
Yeah, not only that, I'm not a big fan of Eviolite cores. Like Chansey is hands down one of the most annoying walls I think ever. Gligar is also very good at what it does. Mega Slowbro, I'm very curious to see how that works in the GBA. We didn't have it back in Season 4 for one reason or another, but I'm very interested to see how that works. However, Nips' team, just in general, there are some core problems. He has a prominent ice weakness. He has no dragon or flying resists. That's kind of going to be a problem with a good coach.
He has Whimsicott, which is immune. So I guess that's the thing.
Why didn't I see that? Okay, flying resistances. That's so bird spam. You just want to click Brave Bird or I don't know, something else that you want to get cheeky with. There you go. One thing I will say that's very good. He has a lot of hazard options. He has Levanny with Sticky Web, Drapion with Spikes and Toxic Spikes, Gligar with Stealth Rock, the same thing with Chansey, and I'm sure you noticed this. He has 1 Defogger in Gligar.
And it's only a defogger, so if he decides to go with the hazard stack route and somebody gets up, say, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Stealth Rocks up on him, he's basically forced to defog all the hard work that he put in to get his hazards up as well.
Exactly. He does have some U-turn potential to create initiative. However, his team is lopsided offensively. Now, let me explain that.
It's very physical.
Yes, his special attack, means are 3-sided. It's either Whimsicott, Gengar, and Mega Slowbro. Then that's pretty much
actually also Levanny, because Levanny Leaf Storm hits surprisingly hard.
That's true, but I still see Levanny as more of a support Pokemon rather than a special attacking sweeper, although it does have some utility.
Yep.
And then it's physical attacking. You have Drapion, Scrafty, Rapidash, Diggersby. We can go on. It's
for Alligator.
It's very one-sided in terms of his offensive choices.
I will say Diggersby is something that I don't think has ever been drafted in the GBA. Am I?
Yes, it has.
It has.
Season 2 was drafted, and then season 3 for a
I,
partial bit. Yeah, season 3.
was it?
Yeah.
But I think that this is the time that is going to show how strong it is because there aren't that many walls that can actually stand up to it since he does have probably the best defensive wall in the game in Mega Slowbro. While Choice Banded Diggersby actually does 2-hit KO Mega Slowbro, believe it or not, after rocks, it's like nothing on anybody else's team can actually take Choice Banded Diggersby on very well. So I think that was probably one really good thing that he does have going for him. He has easy ways to break through walls to let his walls sweep or be a pain in the ass.
Right. I think he will find ways to whittle down his team. It's just we have to see that. That's pretty much the bottom line. So number 15, I have San Francisco Arcaniners. So I think it's nice to see him come in the GBA from the D League, and I'm curious to see how he fits himself in. His team it's well structured. He's kind of have a little bit of hard time in terms of flying, like Nips. He only has one quote unquote flying resistance, being Rotom, but I'm not going to call that a flying resistance. His team is it's well constructed. However, I think it's there's going to be some problems such as he has some good physical attackers. He has Crawdaunt, Scissor, Megalopony. He has probably the step down Nidoking with Nidoqueen, and his walls are varied. However, a lot of them are ice weak, and that kind of bothers me. It's going to be if there's a predominant threat like Mamoswine or Kyurem, it's going to be kind of hard for him to plan around that. I know it's doable, but it's just he's going to have to work a little harder to cover up that weakness that he kind of built for himself.
I think one thing that George is going to notice is that having Megalopony and then straight down to Miltank at base 100 speed, that is going to hurt him more than anything else because honestly, Miltank is not going to be a fast Pokemon or a fast sweeper for him. He's going to have Megalopony, and then the next fastest thing on his team is Rotom. So he's going to be forced to bring a lot of choice Scarf users. He's going to be forced to bring probably Dragon Dance Crawdon, Agility Blaziken, and things like that. I think he might get a little cheeky with like Nasty Plot Baton Pass Togetic into something like Rotom to hit harder because while those things are good, the only thing that hits stupid hard right away is Crawdon.
Right, and that's pretty much what Crawdon does. And it will be nice to see him use Crawdon in more of a premier role because we have seen Crawdon in the past seasons of the GBA play more of a okay, let's like kind of sit back. If we need you, then they'll be brought on a team, such as when Shady used it. But with things like Megalopony or Blaziken, I think there is potential for Crawdon to come forth and actually be a predominant force on his team. The rest of his team, though, I think Gothordel's going to shine very, very much so because it's going to take out walls that he may not necessarily be able to break with his sweepers. So outside of that, it's interesting. I need to see him play in order to understand the structure that he was trying to go for.
One thing that I can also say I really dislike is I personally really dislike 4 times weaknesses in the draft-based format. I
Yeah,
think
you do.
they honestly a lot of you're gonna hear me say a lot that 4 times weaknesses suck just because it's so easy to say, okay, let me EV this specific thing to take out Scizor. Like you could EV train an Excadrill to take out a Mega Scizor if he wants to go for Iron Head or something like that. This is all completely random ideas, by the way, but he can throw on a Life Orb, give it Hidden Power Fire, and make it kill a Scizor on a switch in. Like things like that are very possible and very doable. Do it with HP Grass for Gastrodon. Things like that make 4 times weak walls very useless in my opinion.
One retort to that, he does have two Forex weaknesses in Scissor and Gastrodon. However, he does have a very good check and means of handling that in Gudra. So
He
that
does. However, one thing I will say is Gudra's lack of reliable recovery limits how well it can check those things.
that's true. He did use Gudra rather well though in the D League, so that's something
He
to look
did.
forward to. Oh,
So
that
do,
was my number 15. Where'd you have?
I had San Francisco Arcanines as well.
Okay, all right, just making sure. Number 14, go.
So going on to number 14, I have Crimson Seabad and the Detroit Steel Wings. So the one thing I really dislike about his team is that Latias is his only hazard remover. So whenever you look at his team, you see things like Infernape, Staraptor, Mega Charizard X, all of them do not like Stealth Rocks. Actually, wait, he has Staraptor as well. But let's be realistic. Default Staraptor is not that good. That thing is really good at just killing stuff. Along with that, his walls don't have reliable recovery. Like, if he wants to bring Bulky Charizard X, that does, and I could totally see him doing that more often than not. Dusclops has Pain Split, which I don't know if you could call that reliable. Registeel, Electros have none. Roserade has Synthesis if he wants to bring the Spadef set, so that could be a thing. Crocodile with Intimidate doesn't, and then Suicune has Rest, and Latios does have Roost, so that has reliable recovery. But aside from that, everything is very unreliable at walling things. So whenever you go up against a good wall breaker, like Diggersby or something like that, it's going to be very hard for him to constantly switch in and take those hits, as this thing can just plow through it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think his team is more tanky, less wall y.
Yeah,
He has
exactly. It's very almost bulky offense
yeah,
type of.
yeah, I'd say that. Like you said, there's limited recovery, not necessarily reliable recovery on many of his mons. His wall core options are they're very limited. Registeel, Dusclops. He has a water and grass core, which is good. And then but then he has like Mawile and Electros, and I'm interested to see how he uses those because I know that he was very pumped about those two picks. I'm sure he's going to use them fantastically. However, it's going to be a rough go.
Okay, one thing I will say that I really liked about his team is that he has 5 hazard setters and all forms of hazards. That is absolutely stupid good. If he wants to bring Stealth Rocks Infernape and then go Scarf Crocodile, he can. He can go Bulky Crocodile with Rocks Infernape, Rocks Mawile. He could go Spikes Toxic Spikes Roserade. Registeel gets Rocks. He has very good very good status options with Toxic Roserade, Thunderwave Registeel, Thunderwave Electros. I believe Dusclops gets Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, and Thunderwave. I might be wrong on Thunderwave. Don't quote me on that. But he has very good status options. Like he has some very good options for his team. It's just that I find that whenever he goes up against a team that has an extremely good wall breaker, which they all have at least 2 very good wall breakers, he's going to find that he wishes he had a little bit more reliable recovery on some of his walls.
Yeah, I don't want Crimson to plan himself into a box. When I say that, I don't want him to run these single sets each week, such as Scarf Moxie Crocodile, or Scarf Brave Bird, or Double Edge or Banded Staraptor, or just like you know predictably mixed Electros. I want to see the variance that I know that he can achieve. I could see him being very versatile with Megazord X, having HP Grass for those 4X, ground water types. I could see him doing maybe Endeavor and Fernape. There, I can see the variance
Dragon
of
Dance Latios, I could see him doing that too.
yeah, so can I, except I'm not really excited about that one. There's the variance is there. It's just like he has to access that type of like that Moxie to go ahead and try those sets out. Now, there's a time and place, obviously, to do that. It's just I got to see it. In addition, I use Megazord X. I realized back in GBA Season 1 I wasn't the best player, but it's hard to use against very good players. His division is quite stacked. It's going to be difficult for him to use Zardex in the way he might think it's going to work. I'm not saying
Yep.
he's not going to be able to do it at all. It's just there's going to have to be a set turn at a set, like desirable point in his game plan for which he brings Megazord X and allow it to do what it does in terms of sweeping. He just can't be wild about it and bring it in whenever because it's not going to work. And in addition, him using Mawile, Registeel, Megazord X on the same team is not going to end well for him, flat out.
One other thing that I really think will do decent amounts of work for him is going to be Mawile. The reason being is because it can be very versatile with Sheer Force Life Orb, with Intimidate, with Sucker Punch, with Swords Dance. Like that thing, that even though it's not Mega Mawile, it can still be really freaking good. And I'm really excited to see him use that just because I think there are some teams that do have the matchup to where Mawile can do a lot of work.
So overall, kind of interested to see how his team works. He does have a fire water grass core, pseudo fire water grass core, and he has the ambition to play better, but let's see it happen each week.
Yep.
So I had the Detroit Steel Wings up towards number 9. Kelly had him down at number 14. There should be a happy middle ground somewhere in there. But number 14 for me, here comes the pain train for me. I have the St. Louis Rampardos. We'll dive right into this one. Dan's team. Now, I had initially, I'm gonna man up about this one. I had him placed before I listened to his draft breakdown video, or even listening back to the stream that they had, breaking down each pick and all that. And there was a lot of good points that were raised. I do think that he has two of the better core breakers in Victini and in Keldeo because yes, Keldeo is if you use the physical set, you're a dumb person that shouldn't do that. But then
Hey man, that thing gets Aquajet.
oh my god.
Nice and priority.
But then it's you'll understand that more times than not he's going to use the special, the spec set or the scarf set. But then you have Victini, which is it's mixed and it's mixed for a good reason. At that base 100 all the way across, it's very effective. We saw that last season with Miguel using it. I hope it works out for him. However, I say this with the way I watched all of his battles last year. His team was bulky. His team was a fat offense. It had two very reliable switch-ins in Chansey and Mega Sableye. We don't see that this year. We don't see any remnants of that this year. We see his wall core being restricted to Uxie, Fortress, Mega Aggron, Muck, and Quagsire. Now, Quagsire kind of ties that
Sylveon.
all, and Sylveon. Quagsire kind of ties all that together because I could see that making, him making that thing work. However, I don't like Quagsire from a okay, what is it going to do back perspective. I had the chance of using Quagsire, didn't necessarily like it. I think that there's things like Gastron does its job better. Hell, I even like Swampert better, even though it doesn't get Recover. I just think its stats allow it to be a little bit better at what it's supposed to do, rather than it just being like it's a Quagsire. His team is varied offensively. I believe that he has some prominent, I think, ground and grass weaknesses, but he has zero ghost resists, and he has one ground resist outside of Levitate Uxie, which is just Salamence. So very common weaknesses. Could be a little hard for him to deal with, especially when it's later in the match and something comes in that has that type of stab move and just goes for one move and then the game's over. Sorry, prominent ground weakness. So that's my worry overall.
Probably one of the hardest weaknesses to overcome is Edgequake weakness because it's a very common type of coverage that a lot of physical attackers get in Edgequake because while Sylveon is kind of sort of fat, it doesn't really want to take either one of those attacks because I believe it only has base 90 defense, I
Yep.
believe. I don't know off the top of my head. However, he doesn't have very many switch-ins to it. Like Uxie can be a switch-in, but aside from that, all he has is Quagsire. And like I said before about 4 times weak walls, you can beat that easily. I think he'll end up being forced to bring the Rindoberry. I think he'll be forced to bring Rindoberry more times than not, just because the caliber of players this season is just way up there, and they're gonna be like, oh hey, I can slap on Energy Ball on this thing or Hidden Power Grass and just do 50% and be fine. Aside from that, I think his team is also kind of sort of predictable. The only things that I can honestly say are not extremely predictable are Victini and Salamence for the most part, because Sylveon, it's either defensive or it's choice specs. One of the two. That's it. Fortress does two things. It sets up hazards and goes boom. It sets up hazards, volt switches, and spins. That's it. Jolteon, it hits hard and volt switches. Keldeo hits hard, scalds, and secret swords. Salamence, it either sets up with a Dragon Dance or it's fully special with Draco, Hydro Pump, and Fire Blast. Mega Aggron is fat normally on the special side because its physical defense is already through the roof. Uxie is fat. Golurk, he has used Golurk very well, and I know we said we wouldn't talk about the player. However, Golurk, he has shown me that it can be versatile. So I will say that Golurk can be versatile. Muck is Muck, and then Quagsire is a wall.
I like that.
So it's like his team isn't extremely versatile. It's just you look at it and you know, okay, I got to prepare for two really hard special attackers that can hit me with physical fighting moves, and you go from there. So I think that's going to be one thing that's going to be really hard for him to overcome as well.
One thing that we can say a good job for is he has one spinner, which I think spinners are more important than defoggers. That could work for him. However, running defog on Mence might not be the best idea. But
I actually don't think it'll work for him at all because Fortress being his only rapid spinner means that if he wants to bring his Mega, he instantly has 2 Fire-type weaknesses. And then he's forced to bring Quagsire.
that's true.
Three
Um,
of three of the 4 members of his team figured out right there.
Mega
Three
Aggron
of
though
the
does have
6.
filters, so maybe he can make that thing like not die after one fire move, one or two fire moves. Investing enough special defense to make him do so. But let's see how that turns out.
Yep. I think that this team has potential. It's just it'll be extremely difficult to use.
And he has to kind of avert the whole predictability aspect.
Yep.
Now I had him at 14. Kelly had him at 13. You can go over. Actually, I'll go on to my number 13 since I have to
Yep.
play catch up to you now. I have the Giantes. Like Gio's team last year, I think the whole Rain team is very fun to watch. I was interested to see basically how like how Kote did it in season 3. Will he bring rain or will he not bring rain? Let's find out. This season, it's not that exciting in terms of his team. He has a very prominent ice weakness. He has no dragon or dark weakness, not weaknesses, switch-ins, and his he has a very fat team. Overall, he did a good job on taking in some good walls. He has a Firewater Grass Core, as well as things like Blissey, Spiritomb, Rhydon, and Hippowdon, Defogger, and Latias, and he has Ditto, which can outpace any kind of threat that might be threatening him. However, and this is my main point, he has a fat team, but then what? His offense seems to be a little bit less obvious. He's gonna have to rely a lot on his bulky fat mons to chip off or status or take off some of the power from his opponent's offense, and then kind of let his sweepers clean up. But that might not be that easy. I think his team can get rolled on really quickly if his offense dies quicker than he might expect, and then he's on tilt. If he gets put on tilt, his offense could flatline. Battle could be over right there.
See, I kind of think the exact opposite. I have Geo all the way up at number 8, actually. And the reason being is because while Tom said his offense is kind of sort of not there, I think it's the exact opposite. I think he has some of the best offensive picks just because his team is so fat, the offense isn't really needed. Like he has Hippowdon, which can toxic everything and slack off because Hippowdon is fat AF. Vaporeon can wish baton pass into things, and Amoonguss has Regenerator. So his and Blissey has Soft Boiled. His only real wall, quote unquote, is Spiritomb that doesn't have super good recovery for itself, but that thing has Pain Split along with Sucker Punch, Will-O-Wisp, it can live forever. So with all that, he doesn't really need a bunch of offense with this team. He kind of sort of, with all of that bulk, all he really has to do is send in his Latias, be Life Orbed, and click Draco. He doesn't need a Dragon switch in because he can do things like Hippowdon that can live Dragon type coverage. Amoonguss is surprisingly fat. If he knows that his opponent has a very hard-hitting Draco Meteor user, slap an Assault Vest on that thing. It doesn't need Spore and Synthesis to be really good. It can use Foul Play, Hidden Power, whatever, Hidden Power Rock for a Kyurem. He can use Sludge Bomb and Giga Drain and be good to go and live so many hits. And then go into Entei, click Sacred Fire, and win. Go into Mega Pinsir. We've already seen how good Mega Pinsir can be in the format. Set up a Swords Dance, go for quick attacks, go for returns, and boom, he's good to go. And along with Blissey, he has multiple Stealth Rock setters in Hippowdon, Blissey, and Rhydon. However, with Mega Pinsir, he does lack a little bit of Stealth Rocks removal with Latias. Like, that's it. And then Ditto if he switches it into a Rapid Spinner or a Defogger.
That's bold, though. That's really bold if he does try and do that.
He's a man. What can we say?
You have a good point with the offense. I think Mega Pinsir, will thrive under this. He could bring it in on very favorable situations. He could bring in unpredicted rapid spins or defogs. Entei, I think, will be pushed more into an offensive role, but if he does need to be a defensive, he can do that. Spiritomb, maybe he runs like Banded Spiritomb or like Life Orb Spiritomb, Calm Mind Spiritomb. I can see that working out. And Latias is Latias. I like using Latias. So
I like Latias more than Latios, actually.
I agree. I like the added bulk. So interested to see how that works out. Maybe your words and his play proves me wrong.
One other thing that I really think needs to be said is that bulky teams force teams to prepare for the bulk and less for the offense. I've noticed that over the course of time of me playing, watching Dan play, watching other bulky players, play through the game and through the league format, they prepare so much for the Mega Sableye Chansey core that they forget that Mew can nasty plot up in your face and sweep you. They forget that there are different aspects to a team, but whenever they see, holy crap, Hippowdon, Vaporeon, Amoonguss, Blissey, how am I going to break that? They forget that he also has Choice Banded Entei and Mega Pinsir. So I think that's going to be something that he will thrive off of this season that he didn't really have last season.
Yeah.
So at number 12, I have Steve and the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. This team is pretty good, but we just hope that he doesn't
Steve
Steve
himself.
God damn it. So this team, while it's extremely good, he has arguably the best fire water grass core.
Yep. No,
Wouldn't you
second
say?
best. Second best.
Second best?
Second best.
Okay, we'll go over that later, I would assume.
Yep.
But the one thing I can truthfully say I don't like is that, as Tom said earlier about another team, I think he's going to be working himself into a box. Do you want to go ahead and cover that? Because that's my main point, and you cover it so much better than I do whenever you talk about working into a box.
All right. So the main thing with the GBA is when you seem to find yourself making, building your team with like your coaching staff. Yes, and I'm going to say that many people have coaching staffs now, especially when you seem to find something you like, when you seem to put together this offense, this defense that you like, and especially when it comes to your sweepers, you seem to get attached to that type of that build. Steve has done that time in and time out. His building has become static many times throughout the past few seasons.
And I think that this team actually supports being a static team. And actually, do you mind if I carry on for just a second?
Go for it.
Because there are a few things on his team that are just stupid obvious what they're going to do. Mega Gardevoir screams.
I was about to say
that. And then Sigilyph, I think he's going to use it a lot like the way John did, as a safety button. Dugtrio traps things. While it does force people to plan for a trapper, it traps things. It's extremely frail. If it's a Scarf user and it outspeeds Dugtrio and he's not Focus Sash, it's going to die to any one hit. Kecleon will be versatile. It'll be extremely versatile. Shaman, I think, has gotten better over time in the format, but then he has Heatran, which is either Scarf or Bulky, and then he has Rotom. What is a Rotom, Tom?
Rotom is a Rotom. It's not a tank. It's utility at best. It's not even a wall. It's just a Rotom.
It's just a Rotom. And then Conkeldurr, I think the most versatile thing that thing could do is be bulk up. Aside from that, Assault Vest is extremely obvious. Haxorus could be really cool for him to use with Dragon Dance and like Lumberry or Choice Scarf, Choice Banded, depending on the matchup. But aside from that, his team is very one-dimensional. I think he'll be finding himself bringing a lot of the same sets throughout the season.
I agree with all of that. I think you talking about each mon's roles is very important to key on here. You can't, teams are going to look at Steve's team and go, okay, well, he needs to cover this with this. He needs to cover this. So he's playing the coach that is playing more times than not. It's gonna find the matchup and try to exploit it. Now, what Steve needs to do is not let that get exploited. He needs to attempt to try and fool his opponent. Now, I'm not saying run Special Conkeldurr or like Physical Mega Gardevoir. That's beyond out of the question. It's just don't let that be your MO. Don't let that be the main thing that your opponent can instantly get you for before turn one. Go to team preview. Okay, well, this answers this answers this, and he moves through my team with this. Like that, prevent that from happening from the beginning. I can see his team. I think Skunk Tank's going to do okay at defogging and maybe pursuit trapping, sucker punching, the like that. I could see Kecleon do better this time around. I don't necessarily believe in Kecleon. I haven't been for a very long time. Shut up, Adam.
I think Kecleon is actually freaking amazing.
And you know what? I want to see that happen. Just haven't seen it yet. I think Delphox is kind of going to be very quiet. Maybe brought to 1 or 2 matches. That's not
what? Are you on crack?
He has Heatran.
So?
And he has Sigilyph. Sigilyph and Heatran are going to get more spotlight than Delphox is going to.
I don't know, man. Delphox's speed and then the ability to set up Calm Minds and just nuke everything with a Fire Blast, I think might actually be more useful than Heatran, because Heatran can really only be especially defensive.
He has better Calm Minder on his team than Delphox.
In what?
Mega Gardevoir?
No, I don't think that's a better Calm Mind, honestly. I think that thing is just better at screaming and scaring everything out.
After one Calm Mind with base 100 speed, it's gonna be effective. I think more effective than Delphox. It's base 104. That means it's outpaced by Latios's, all three of the
But it's
legendary.
not outbased by base 100s. So it's not outsped by Mega Charizard X, Mega Charizard Y. So Victini, it could use Shadow Ball if he's not scarfed. I'm trying to Mew. There's a lot of base 100s and lower flying around that I think that he might actually see. Okay, he'll find a team that he can outspeed a lot of because they have a base 100. Perfect example, George. He has a base speed of 130, then 100, and then straight down to 85, I think, in Rotom. To where if he brings max speed Miltank with I don't know, an iron steel type move of some type, it could really put a hurting on Mega Gardevoir to where Delphox could outspeed it and hit it with a Psyshock.
It's a good point, and
It's
maybe
a
he
it's a very it's a very minuscule point.
and okay, maybe Delphox does shine on Steve's team. Hell, we've seen him use it many times in Wi-Fi battles, just casually being used. I maybe he finds a certain niche with Delphox in the true Steve way. And I'm pretty sure this is how I'm going to end my point on Steve. It'll either crumple or it'll succeed. One or the other, no middle
Six
ground.
Steve.
Haha!
Six Steve.
All right,
Okay,
go.
next one.
I have him at 10. You have him lower than that. Okay, go.
No, you go about your number 12.
My number 12 is good old Fizzy Stardust. I like Fizzy Stardust. I like that he's back. I missed Fizzy. He hasn't been around. He new channel and all that. I think Fizzy coming back along with Nick and Gubs adds this different type of pressure to all of the coaches that were around GBA season 4. Um, these veterans that have come back, they bring us different sort of presence because we were, and I'll kind of put myself in this in way I could talk about it. When we were in the GBA, there was no points. Now that is either a good thing or a bad thing, but I seen that these three coaches seem to have bring an understanding of how to adapt. However, their teams and their play style, I think, are in certain ways much better than some of the playing that we've seen from the coaches that were in GBA season 4. And I'm very, very excited to see how that pans out. Fizzy's team is shot out of the Gen 4 cannon because that's kind of what I look at this outside of Chestnut Megazard Y. His team, it's going to be very effective in a very quiet sort of way. It's going to be like the Jets outside of like 2 weeks ago. Like they were quietly good, but it's going to be good in a way that no one's going to quite expect. I like the fast options he has on his team. I like the fact that he has Megazard Y, Starmie, Heliolisk, things like Tyranitar with mixed with Stoutland. He has the good old Aggron, Head Smasher galore, and his weaknesses are kind of very varied. He a few Forex weaknesses, which I'm sure Kelly will harp on, but fighting and ground are his two biggest weaknesses. Outside of that, I think his wall core is going to be varied in a good way. He's going to find ways to use Togekiss both the annoying way and an effective way. Doughblade we saw did very well last year, and I don't know. I'm excited to see what Fizzy brings to the table. Maybe that we weren't able to see back in season 3 and in season 2.
So I actually have Fizz at number 10, so I have him a little bit higher than you do. I'm actually not going to talk about his 4 times weaknesses at all
All
because
right.
I think he covered them fucking amazingly. Tyranitar fighting, okay, I have Togekiss. Bring it bulky, good to go. Charizard Y, 4 times Rock's weakness. Starmie gets Rapid Spin. Togekiss gets Defog. Starmie is arguably the best Rapid Spinner in OU. He wants to run a Stab Rock type move. I have a Tyranitar to switch in, or a Garchomp, or a Doublade, or a Weezing, or a Chestnut, or the list goes on. Flying, okay. Tyranitar,
20.
he has so many switch-ins to what he does have for 4 times weaknesses that I think he covered them up extremely well. However, one thing I will say is that double weather is kind of sort of hard to pull off in a draft-based format because while, yeah, you could bring all one week and all one the other, what happens when you need to bring Tyranitar and Stoutland, and then Mega Charizard Y also runs through an opponent's team.
See, this is what
And I think that'll be where it'll be really hard for him to pull off, in my opinion.
see that's something that
But
I
that's just kind of me. The one other really good thing about his team that I really really liked is the so many different types of setup that he has. Nasty Plot Togekiss, Swords Dance Garchomp, Cosmic Power Starmie, Dragon Dance Tyranitar, Dragon Dance Megazord Y, Swords Dance Dewblade. Stoutland is just stupid powerful in the sand anyway. So I think he has a lot of versatility options along with very bulky options in Togekiss. Starmie is surprisingly fat if you invest it correctly, and Tyranitar in the
yeah, it
sand
is.
is fat anyway. I love it. And then Dewblade, Weezing, Chestnut. I think they cover each other's weaknesses extremely well. I think that was a very good triple draft right in a row.
I just to go on that point about the double weather. The one thing I think Fizzy brings that I kind of think some coaches might tend to fall into is a double weather. I think having double weather is it's good for in a way that he would use. He's not gonna try and force himself into that play where he has to utilize both at the same time unsuccessfully. We saw that in season 1 and 2 with the Chicago Grand Bulls. They used rain and sunlight or drought, and it didn't work for a good reason. But I think Fizz is going to have it more as a support reason rather than a like a necessity to his offense. Starmie can recover, does Togekiss and Roost. Heliolisk is going to benefit on both sides. Doesn't necessarily need to run Dry Skin, but also doesn't necessarily need to run Solar Power. But I think if Fizzy plans well enough, he could use both of those abilities very effectively to allow him to get the best possible outcome.
Another thing that I want to go off about the drought and drizzle. This type of double weather is not contradicting. Mega Charizard
That's true.
Y, say it didn't have drought, for example. Say like fire type moves aren't weakened in the sand. Heliolisk doesn't lose anything if it has solar power and is in the sand. So I think that is one really good thing. Chestnut in the sun, while yes, it's weaker to fire type attacks, like it doesn't hurt itself in the sand. Like they don't contradict each other like water and fire do. So I think that was very good. If I had to compliment the double weather, that was a very good double weather draft was sand and sun.
And his leftovers options aren't necessarily hurt by the fact that there might be Sandstorm up. Starmie has recover, can bypass the leftovers being negated. Togekiss, same thing with Roost. Deblade, outside the fire thing, he can kind of handle that. Chestnut, leftovers, but also can have Leechy recovery. We can go on and on. You get our point.
If he
Uh,
doesn't bring Sandvale, Bright Powder, Garchomp at least once, I'm gonna be disappointed.
I think Sandville's frowned upon in the GBA, but I don't know.
But Bright Powder isn't?
Listen, you know what? I didn't like it either, man. When Cooper ran that, I wasn't excited about that. Fizzy is a good addition. I think he'll show that he still got it. He's still a man with the plan, and look forward to seeing him. I had him at 12. You had him at 10.
My number 11 I have as the Arizona Deoxys. Is it Deoxys or Deoxys?
Whatever Gubbs feels that day is what he describes it as.
Sounds good to me. So with number 11, I want to go off by mainly positives because at this point in time in the draft, I can honestly say there weren't many options for me to say, well, this team is so much better than this team because of this. Like they're all really good in general, but from here on up, I had a very hard time just saying what I disliked about teams. I'm just being honest. The main thing that I really, really like about his team is the setup diversity, how fast it is, and the mindset of hit and run. Like, for example, Thundurus, Lucario, Zoroark, Mega Alakazam, and Talonflame. They get in, they punch a hole, and they get the fuck out. Like, they don't stay in forever, you
We ain't
know?
staying for the party. We get that.
And I think that's one thing that I really like about his team. The one thing I can say I dislike about his team is his wall core options. I don't like Gliscor, Tentacruel, and Snorlax together. Cradily kind of as a wall, but I don't really like Gliscor, Tentacruel, Snorlax combined together.
Okay, so with Gubbs, he has him number 11. I have him number 7. I'm a little bit higher on Gubbs' team. I do like the whole Firewire Grass core. I do like the fact that he's Gliscor, Snorlax, Escavalier as expense, more tanky mons, less wally mons. However, like you said, it's a hit and run team. It's going to punch holes and then rely on some sort of kind of like a stalling. Means
You
that
mean
he
the
can,
good stall?
yes, he could sit back, kind of like bide out his time, and then punch some more holes and kind of stand back, more like a guerrilla warfare type offense. I like that.
Yep.
I'm going to run with that. He has a good spinning option, good defanging option, and then very few stealth rock weaknesses. And Gubs being Gubs, he won't bring Talonflame in on stealth when stealth rock is up unless he already realizes that's his win condition, or it's like the end of the game and it doesn't matter anymore, or just because he needs to sack it off for something that can come in and do whatever it needs it to do. His
His team
team,
is also really fucking fast.
it's like second fastest, but it's not the fastest, I think.
I don't think it's the fastest, but whenever you look at it, you got to be like, okay, I need to bring specific Scarfers to outspeed Mega Alakazam, Talonflame if he's not going for Brave Bird, and a possible Zoroark.
Yep, and I
That's
wanna
scary.
I wanna talk about Zoroark, especially in light of the Sludge Bomb event.
Wait, there was a Sludge Bomb event?
Oh boy, this is gonna be learning time for you. He Zoroark was just released in Japan, getting Sludge Bomb. Now, it being a Dark type, it now has means of taking on Fairy types such as Steve's Mega Gardevoir or things like Sylveon, among other things. The way that Gubs is now going to use Zoroark, and it's very interesting to see how it's going to affect both the mindset, narrations, and overall just effectivity of the his offense and his opponent's offense is going to be very interesting. Now, I say that because Zoroark forces opponents to sit back and wait and be like, okay, is this Zoroark? No, he switched out. Is this Zoroark? Did he bring it in? Oh man, I can't go for any kind of psychic move. Like the coaches that he's going to be playing against, it's going to be said at least 4 times in their commentary. It's not a bad thing, but that is going to play a prominent force psychologically in his opponents. It's going to be very interesting to see how that's affected. Now, Zoroark as a Pokemon is very good. I believe it has base 125 or 120 special attack. I think like base 110 or 100 physical attack, and it's very fast. It gets like Sucker Punch. Has good
Yep.
stab options as well
Knockoff
as,
2, Pursuit.
yep, and is on top of that, it gets a lot of different coverage moves like Flamethrower and now Sludge Bomb. So the way I think that Zoroark's going to be used, because we haven't seen it before in the GBA at all, like it because people don't want to, have to use the illusion to their advantage. They just want to have other things that maybe do its job better, and it's arguable that there are things better than Zoroark. But I think Gub's going to use it in a very interesting way on top of his already prominent speed. One thing I'm not really excited about seeing is Credillia. I just don't like Credillia.
Can I say one thing about Zoroark that I think is absolutely amazing planning on Gubs' part? I don't know if he planned this during the draft. However, Zoroark's main way of setup is Nasty Plot. He has 2 other amazing Nasty Plot users in Lucario and Thundurus. So if he has it disguised as Lucario and he goes for Nasty Plot, that mind game doesn't get broken the instant he goes for an attack. Like if he goes for Flamethrower, it's not broken if he's a Lucario. He can go for Nasty Plot, and then they're scared of a potential Nasty Plot Lucario or Zoroark. And I think that was fantastic planning on Gubs' part during the draft. I think that was absolutely amazing.
The other thing too is I can kind of see how this would work is if he brings in Thunderous T, say on a predicted Stealth Rock setup. Okay, he goes for Nasty Plot, knowing he has the capability of doing so. But then when you see the Thunderous T, okay, well, one for Nasty Plot. Okay, I'm gonna switch into this. But then you see the Sucker Punch animation. It's oh crap,
Yep.
and that plays a very big effect. I think Gubs' team is going to be very effective at what he's going to try to do. I know he's a hell of a competitor. Anyone who watched before season 4 can see that. But good job, Gubs.
Yep. I think he had a very good draft. It was one of my least favorite drafts. However, it was still very good. Like there's no denying it.
I was a little higher on Gubs. I have him up at number 7 because I think it's one of the more tricky drafts. I think it's gonna be pan out a little better than some of the stuff that I have below. So we'll go on to my number 11. This team is going to be at Kelly's number 9. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates. Tup was fortunate enough to have that first draft pick, and I think he did a very good job at building a team that I think will stand up very well to other teams outside of maybe 1 or 2 mons that are a little. He has probably this is the second best fire water grass core. Yeah, I think there's one more better, but that's because of the specific mons that encompass that fire water grass core. Okay, I like Tubbs' team, I think he did a fantastic job in building the way that he did each time he was able to draft. Having that snake, in the snake draft, having the means of coming around and getting two things that can complement one another, or get something that he was really eyeing, and then come back and get something that he needs to patch up in terms of weaknesses, was very effective in its own right. He did a good job, especially with picking Excadrill first. Having Mega T-Tar, he's going to have Sand. Maybe Sandrill makes a very good impact. Not really kind of buying it just yet. I think there's more opportunities for him to change it up and not solely rely on Sand Force Drill or Sand Rush Drill. On top of that, he has a very prominent rock weakness, ice, fighting, water, but those can be patched up very much so by his Celebi choice. Firewater Grasscore, like I said, he's just versatile all over, and I don't see his offense flatlining as quickly as some of the other teams.
One thing I can honestly say I dislike about this quote-unquote sand team is the fact that one wall that he's going to end up falling in love with, because everybody that uses Arcanine falls in love with Bulkanine, with Leftovers, with Rocky Helmet. They fall in love with it. It happens. However, Morning Sun in the sand is no bueno. It's not it's not good. Along with him picking up Mega T-Tar as a sand setter, yeah, I could see it. However, whenever you take into the fact to where if he wants a reliable sand setter for Excadrill, he will only now have 4 turns. So if he sets up a Swords Dance and then goes for 3 attacks, if the opponent makes the right prediction, has Protect, he loses out on a turn of sand and he's down to 2. And that can really be crippling to an Excadrill sand sweep. And also Mega Tyranitar is, while it's still fat like Tyranitar, it's not as fat because it can't run the Assault Vest. It doesn't have reliable recovery. However, I do think that Mega Tyranitar on this team is probably one of the most versatile Pokemon that he possibly could have drafted in the final spot because of the coverage it gets in Ice Beam, Fire Blast, Edge Quake, Pursuit, Crunch, Dragon Dance. I think it'll be very versatile for him, and I think he'll actually bring sets every single week that the opponent will not expect.
It's a good point about Arcanine. As someone who's used Arcanine, I didn't necessarily think about that because I had the fortune of having Megazard Y in accompaniment with.
Oh, one more thing. Kyurem is amazing. Holy tits. It's amazing. If the opponent doesn't really plan for a choice specs Kyurem to come in, especially whenever he has something like a Celebi that can baton pass stuff to it, if they're not prepared for that, it will run through an entire team like it's nothing.
I think Amapom is going to thrive on Tup's team. I think it's going to be something that he can use to stop or just chip away at someone else's offense. In addition, I think that he has a lot of experience with Ambipom, so in doing such, he can understand what Ambipom is good at, what options it has in terms of offensive capabilities, and what it's bad at, so that he can kind of take those roles and pass it off to other things, like I said, like Excadrill or Archeops or even Thundurus and Kyurem. I love Kyurem.
Glad you put Kyurem in there.
I love Kyurem Black. Not really sold on Kyurem just yet. Interested to see what it does. Just not sold on it immediately. Machamp. It's the first time we've seen Machamp, I think, in the GBA.
No, I think it was used in Season 1. But I'm like 99% positive it was used in Season 1. I think he took Machamp a little bit early, but, looking at his final picks, you can't really criticize what he took early because his late picks were so amazing. Like he got Golbat. That takes pressure off of Excadrill to be a spinner, which is probably one of the best spinners along with Starmie. And then I think Jellicent is one of the best bulky waters outside of Milotic and Vaporeon. I think it's one of the best.
Can we just talk about how prevalent he is not wanting to switch his walls into knockoffs?
I mean, yeah, that's a thing. I guess that's a good thing he has Mega Tyranitar for.
Because, unlike some other fighting types, such as like Keldeo or Terrakion, Machamp it's going to get its Assault Vest knocked off, its Life Orb, which may kind of turn out to mean that it can't live a certain hit or can KO something when it needs to be KO'd. Maybe it knocks Archeops into Defeatist. But things like Jellicent, Celebi, even Arcanine in the sand, Golbat, it's not going to appreciate taking that knockoff. That's my only concern outside of maybe some static sets, like I said, for Steve and Crimson. It's going to be a toss-up this season. He's either going to ride and die by this team, or it's going to be a struggle each week.
Do you want to go ahead and move on? Because after your number 11. We already talked about Steve, and we already talked about Crimson. So we're both now actually put up. Okay, so looking at Malvone's team, it's probably the most offensive team I have ever seen in a draft format ever. It's it's stupid fast. I can honestly say that people criticized a lot of the Neuvern pick, of the Zangoose pick, of things like that. But whenever you look at a hyper offensive team, you have to look at what it's missing. He has Mega Manectric, Landorus, and Azelf as his first three picks. He has a Volt Switcher and two U-turners, all three of which are decently fast. Landorus being fast with a Scarf, base 91 speed isn't that fast. However, it can rock polish up and be extremely fast. So he has those three mons that can hit multiple sides of the spectrum. He needs to fill certain roles after that, and Noivern fills the role of having a very fast Pokemon that can just spam Draco with choice specs. Typhlosion can spam Eruption. Gallade can spam Close Combat. And Zangoose can spam Facade. Along with Weavile obviously being able to spam like Ice moves and Pursuit and Knockoff, I can see why he covered the things he did with his later picks still being extremely offensive. I love Umbreon on this team, I really do. However, Umbreon and Empoleon together make a stupid bad fighting weakness, which I dislike. I dislike Empoleon in general, I'm just being honest.
I think I'm a little bit more okay with this team is because after watching all his videos last year, I noticed something. The way that the Loud Reds thrive was on the fact that they were allowed to dictate how the match went according to their rules and the way that they played. Now, when he had things like Talonflame in, Megamanetric in, and Weavile in, the game was all on his shoulders. Like he dictated what moves, what you were switching into and what was dying that turn. When he went into things like Fortress or Gastrodon or Gliscor, more times than not, the game kind of slipped out of his possession and allowed his opponent to get a little bit of momentum. What I like about his team that maybe a lot of other people are kind of harping on is he has a lot of offense, but a good type of offense. It's not a useless offense. I say that because having Weavile, Azelf, Noivern, Megamanetric, Typhlosion, it's going to put the game in his favor more times than not. Sure, there's some switch-ins, and maybe that double fighting weakness in Empoleon and Umbreon is kind of going to be a troublesome, but having things like Gallade and Dusknoir to counter that, which is, it would, speaking of which, fighting inferior most prevalent, weaknesses. I think he's going to find ways to overcome that in a good way. He did franchise Weavile for a good reason. I think what he used to build up an offense and a scary offense at that is going to allow him to succeed more times than it's going to be the reason that he loses a match.
One other thing I want to kind of build off of is having Landorus T and Noivern being both quad weak to ice. Yeah, it sucks. However, look at what he franchised. He franchised one of the best Ice Shard users. So that's not a worry for his team. The only other one out there really is Mamoswine, who is owned by one of the best coaches in the league anyway. So that's a threat no matter what to his team.
Yeah.
So whenever you kind of look at, you can't even say that he has a massive ice weakness because there's no ice types out there that can really hurt him a whole lot. Mega Glalie wasn't drafted. One thing I do like about his team is that I love offensive teams that can push an opponent into a back corner that they just can't get out of. Because once you've already lost so many crucial members of your team early on in the match, your mind instantly goes into panic mode and you don't know how to react to things that are in. You don't know how to react to what he has left. And whenever you see two Pokemon that just run through two, maybe even 2.5 members of a team, you don't know what his other 4 members sets could be. And that's what's scary for an opponent. And I think that'll be amazing for this team.
I think this team is going to be equivalent to like getting beaten up in like an alley, and that's a weird analogy. I understand that, but if you kind of picture it as like his team has so many offensive threats and so many things like you said that could take out 1.5, 2.5 mons. It's going to be really hard to come back from that when you have maybe lost a quarter to a half of your team in terms of HP or just altogether. It's going to be hard to come back from that, and then you still have to like what you brought to check or to kind of have an answer for those things, you're kind of playing off your back foot. We have seen some coaches fall apart solely because of their own panic. I think this team is going to be really good, even better than Gubs' team at having offensive control maintaining offensive control, and then beating you down continually.
Yeah, I think this team will succeed very well this season.
Don't look at and hey, listen. Last year we said he had the most Forex weaknesses. Did that hold Mulvone back? Hell no.
No, not at all.
So this team being offensive is not going to hold him back. It's actually going to be probably what puts him forward more times than not. So you want to talk about next?
I believe you can. I have confidence in you a little bit.
I don't have as much confidence as this team as I did last year. My number 5 is the New Orleans Pelicans. Now last year we put him at number 1. This year we're going to put him in the top 5, but it's like a shaky top 5. John.
I'm putting him at number 6, so he's not in my top 5.
So John's team this year, I think it's going to play more to how he would make a team, say on Showdown, or say in just a casual match. I say no because that's important. Because when a coach is allowed to play off for with mons that are a little bit more comfortable for them, it allows them just to play better and more of a casual setting versus like okay, I've never used this before. How do I use it? Let's use it when it really matters, and I got to win this match. That type of thing. His team is varied in a good way. He has, let's see, he has a good Watergrass core. He has a great Dragon Fairy Steel core, and he has things like Donphan, Uniclus, Golem. Golem, gotta see how that pans out for him. I've never really been sold on Golem. Uniclus though, going to be fantastic for him.
Yeah.
One spinner, one defogger, very good at what they do, respectively, and his team is very diverse in how he takes on his opponent each week. There will never be a week where he goes in and goes, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing I did last week, or he's going to fall into stale roles. All of his mons are varied in a very good way. He has things like Scissor, Raikou, Hydreigon, and Sawk. Sawk is, we've never seen that in the GBA, at least not work successfully, but having something like Scissor and Raikou and Hydreigon, there's never going to be a week that he's going to have to worry about what type of offense or how he's going to initiate that offense, because those 3 mons right there are very effective at either playing a surprising role as to what set they are, or in terms of just like picking things off with their speed and power. Those things are very effective. I think John's team is good enough to be competitive. I just think that his play is going to define where he goes from there.
I think his team, first off, I think Sawk was the best NU pick of the entire draft.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think this team is the definition of not working yourself into a box. He's not going to look at any team matchup at any point in time and be, okay, I have to bring Choice Scarf Hydreigon. I have to. No matter what, I have to. He doesn't have that option with this team, because he could bring Scarf Chandelure instead. He could bring Scarf Raikou, Scarf Sawk, or honestly, Virizion I think will do very well for this team because of the synergy it has. I think that him being kind of a little weak to flying spam might hurt it a little bit, but not many things have a lot of flying spam. There's Talonflame, there's Staraptor. Aside from that, I don't think there was a whole lot of bird spam drafted, correct? Tornadus and stuff like that. But I think his team will be very diverse, and I think that this has a lot of potential for him to run as many sets as he wants, as many times as he wants. If he wants to bring Spadef Scizor 1 week to surprise an opponent, you bring Spadef Scizor, John, because you can with this team. He's not forced into anything, and I love that. He's not forced to bringing any specific walls. Like, he's not forced to bringing Spadef Florges. He could bring Fizdef and then bring Spadef Uniqueless or something like that, or AV Raikou or Defensive Hydreigon. I think that this team is absolutely amazing. Also, Virizion is extremely bulky on the special side, so.
Yeah. On top of that, he has something like Lantern to complement, Virizion and even Chandelure. In addition, I think that Chandelure, in its own right, does kind of complement his team in a very specific way. There's like a trifecta of compliments from like his walls to his sweepers, and specifically with Chandelure, like there's going to be a fear factor on his team where if you see Chandelure and Mega Scizor into the on the team preview, his opponent's not necessarily going to just go ahead and be like, yeah, I'm going to go for Fire Blast or Flamethrower and not think about it, because if you let Chandelure get the Flash Fire and say on switch, assuming your choice, you don't have a reliable answer for that Chandelure upon switching. The problem is he gets behind a sub, or his Become Mind, or he's Scarfed or Specs. Those hits are not going to be appreciated at all, especially if your fire resistances are limited. On top of that, he does have good support in terms of gaining initiative with Volt Turn. I think this team is the best Volt Turn happy. Might be wrong on that, but at least it's how I feel about it. Not only that, but he can Wish Pass with Florges, so that can help things like Donphan get back to Sturdy or Sock allow to sweep more. Hydreigon, Mega Scissor, you get the deal. It's good.
Okay, so one last thing I want to say about John is that I think his team is missing a little something. However, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not even sure that John knows what it is, but I feel like it's missing something. And that's why I put him at number 6, solely because I can't put my finger on it, but there is something that it's missing, and to this day, from the minute that he drafted it to right now, I still can't figure out what I think he's missing.
I guess we'll find that out as the season goes along.
Heck yeah, we will. But that was your number 5. My number 5 is the Real Maril, which is a little bit surprising, I realize. However, I have a couple really good reasons why I think this team should be number 5 compared to the ones that I have above it. I think Mega Altaria, the best first round pick of the entire league. I think that was amazing. However, with his wall options, I feel like he's going to be forced to bring Mew as a wall or as a bulky mon with Will-O-Wisp or Thunderwave. I don't think he'll find very many matchups where he can be like, oh hey, I have this extra Mew slot to where I could just run Nasty Plot and be good with it. I don't think that's going to be the thing. I think he's going to see a lot of options to where Zapdos is going to have to be bulky. It's not going to be able to be ran choice specs that much. I don't think he's going to find a lot of options to hazard stack either with Ferrothorn, because a lot of people, while they don't have good hazard removal, they have ways to deal with a Ferrothorn, if you know what I mean. I don't really like Seismitoad as his bulky water, quote unquote, but I like it as his tanky water. I think that was, I prefer to call Seismitoad a fat water and not a bulky water, because Seismitoad can take hits, but it can also dish out hits extremely well. Another thing that I think this team could potentially be really good with is Manual Rain, because Ferrothorn benefits from it, Zapdos kind of sort of benefits from it, Greninja benefits from it, Seismitoad benefits from it, and Gourgeist benefits from it. I think that'll be something that he will probably run at least once. And I think probably one thing, I'm not going to mention Greninja too much because I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. It hasn't been used with Torrent in League format in the GBA yet. I don't know how it'll do. But one thing that I do know will do amazing is Braviary. There are no switch-ins to a Braviary. Or an Emboar for that matter.
Good point. I like your points. I think I could see why you'd put Miguel lower necessarily. So my number 1, I do have Miguel. I like his team because it complements everything that he does so well. I think, okay, so last season he had Mega Lopunny, he had Hydreigon. I think there are options that he has selected on his team that will still give him that safety net, but in some ways better, in some ways a little worse. He has Emboar for his physical. There's not very many switches to Emboar with how versatile its set is, especially when it gets Scald. Fire Pig gets Scald. That makes sense. Um, Mega Altaria is going to be so good in his hands, especially with how he team builds, the way that he just understands how these setup megas work, the way that Ferrothorn might be successful for him, even Seismitoad. He complements everything on his team so well with other choices. Mamoswine in his hands, it's just going to be Mamoswine's going to pick off at least 1 to 2 things each match. On top of that, I will talk about Greninja because I believe that Torrent Greninja is still going to shine outside of having protein, because base 122 speed, base like 110 or some weird loopy special attack stat on top of all the different moves that it has. Now protein broke it, but the fact that it has however many different types of moves to use, and he can run Life Orb, he can run Specs or Scarf and kind of mess up someone's day. Greninja will be good, and there is anyone that could use Greninja in a way that will surprise some other coaches. I think it is Miguel. His team is it's put together. He has a more obvious ice weakness than some other teams. However, I think he drafted well. It complements his play style, complements everything that he might want to accomplish to mirror how well he did last season, being the champion. And I think it's gonna carry him and allow him to really just play well.
I just have my doubts.
And that's fine because I have my doubts about other teams. But as
But
always, we are analysts. We want to be proven wrong.
I'm actually kind of sort of waiting for Miguel to prove me wrong with this one because I know how he is. I know he will prove me wrong. Even if it's in the first game, he'll prove me wrong. It's just I really truthfully feel like Mew will be locked into a defensive role, and it's just his team is going to be a little easy to predict in some spots. Not his team will be entirely easy to predict, but some things will be.
Also, his last four draft picks kind of tied together his entire draft because there was if he didn't pick what he did for the last four, I think there would have been some things that kind of were left unfinished in terms of what he needed coverage for or what type of offensive capabilities he needed. I think his last four picks tied it all together in a very nice little bow.
I think that Gorgeist is going to be extremely awesome to use because he does get access to all of the sizes. I think that will be interesting to see. I'm really excited to see that.
That's true. Yeah, he's not limited to that. It's good God. At both of our respective number fours, we have the Borussia Donphan. Borussia or Borussia?
Borussia. I think it's Borussia.
Cold Donphan. He's the icy Donphan team, which doesn't have Donphan. Lars is new, and he is our highest. Well, your highest placed newcomer. I like his team because it terrifies me. As you and me being coaches, this team is terrifying because, well, Scolopy Lander aside. I know it's hard to throw off baton passes with stat boosts into certain mons and have it work effectively, but if there's anyone who has experience both in league and just in playing, and then someone who has a team to complement that type of role, either early game or late game, or I'm sorry, mid game, late game, it's Lars and his team. Anything that he passes into is going to hurt. Whether it's Mega Absol, which for the first time since season one we're seeing it get drafted, Azumarill, Druddigon, maybe sort of, Cobelian and Landorus Eye. It's just overall there's so many options and so many effective options if he really wants to like trick his opponent. On top of that, his defensive walls has that fat and annoying regenerator core. And you can agree, and anyone can agree with me, that fat regenerator cores are the bane to some people's existence
They're
because
my life. I love them.
shut up. You are a stolly person, so you love that type of stuff.
Exactly.
So,
That's why I can appreciate it so much that he has it.
he has his most predominant ice type weaknesses and 4x weaknesses are his ice type weaknesses. However, he has Slowking to complement that. He has one Ghost Resist, which might hurt him, and then but to complement that, he has the least amount of 4x weaknesses out of any team. So that's awesome. Like I said, Regenerator is annoying. The Regenerator Water Grass core, the Dragon Fairy Steel core is going to be effective in some cases. He has one of the best sheer force mons, I think, in the GBA format. In addition, like just overall, his team it's
Wait,
reliable.
hold on. Which one? Because he has two of them, which are both freaking amazing.
I like how you point that out because I almost wasn't going to say that. I meant Landorus Eye.
Okay, well, I'm talking about Druddigon real quick. Druddigon is freaking amazing. Adamant Sheer Force, Life Orb, Thunder Punch does like 80 some odd percent to defensive Milotic.
It gets
That is
Gunk Shot
stupid.
and Sucker Punch.
Exactly. And access to Stealth Rocks. Like, that thing is scary.
And that kind of adds another just dimension to his offense because, like I said, if he wants to pass into what you might expect in being Landorus, yeah, they're both weak to ice. But like hypothetically, say he has like AV Druddigon, max HP, max attack, and you pass like speed into that thing. Well, then guess what? Now you have a fast and bulky Druddigon coming your way with a varied move pool, and I'm not sure many teams have all of the answers to what Lars could do.
I don't think any team has all the answers that they need for his team. I don't think any team has all the switch-ins that it needs. Even teams that I think that are the fattest don't have the switch-ins for this. What switches into a Landorus Eye's Earth Power?
Very little.
What switches into a Choice Bandit Azumarill's Play Rough?
More than you expect.
Shut up. Not really, just steel types. Just steel types, honestly, and poison types, kind of. But if it's resisted, that's obvious. But aside from that, people don't have switch-ins to this man's team. Scolipede with speed boost, it doesn't even need to pass to be stupid strong.
That's true. I didn't mention.
He could Mega Absol, I think, is going to be amazing with having a viable special attack stat and an insane special move pool, along with having things like Cobalion to set up swords dances. Crobat is extremely good with its special move pool because people don't think about that. They think about Brave Bird, Taunt, Roost, Default, things like that. They don't think about the fact that it gets Giga Drain, Heat Wave, things like that. And I think he'll really exploit that in some scenarios. There This team is just, it's so scary at the fact that there are no switch-ins. The only thing I can honestly say I dislike about his Regenerator core is the fact that it doesn't really appreciate knockoff. And what I mean by that is Tangrowth is extremely bulky with an Assault Vest. Outside of that, it doesn't really like hits that much. Slowking, it doesn't really appreciate knockoffs unless it's physically defensive. And on top of that, Regirock, once it gets like its leftovers knocked off, it doesn't have reliable recovery because it's not a regenerator mon. So I think that's going to be a couple things that I think his core will lack on, and that's the main reason I put him at number 4.
That's a very good point. His team overall, just even his outside of the regenerator core, the other options he has, like Cobalion being defensive and then getting out with Volt Switch, having Sandslash spin and just be kind of utility in the back, and then like you said Crobat, and then like Regirock. Regirock might not be as prominent. Like Regirock and Sandslash, I see are kind of the least highlighted mons on his team.
No,
But
Sandslash is going to be amazing.
I'm not saying it's not going to be amazing. I'm saying it's the least noteworthy.
I'm going to make a bold prediction right now and say that it's going to get at least
Wrong
8
show.
kills.
Wrong show. Wrong show.
No, I'm just saying. It's going to do good.
Do well.
No, it's going to do
Number three.
No, hold on. I want to say one more thing. One thing I really, really like is the fact that while his team does kind of look a little hazard weak in Spike, Stealth Rock, and things like that, and whenever you look at his team, you kind of sort of forget that Mega Absol has Magic Bounce.
Yeah, I think some people are going to forget that.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen to at least 3 teams. It's going to be a pain to deal with. I love Mega Absol.
Number 3. Okay, so you have this team is much higher than I do, and people will be seeing that right now. But I had the Sacramento Sea Kings number 9. I'm not buying it all at first, but I'm interested to hear your points. Now, with Hayden's team, he's a newcomer. However, his team is effective in a way, but I think there's more to be desired as compared to like John's team, where maybe it was a little more put together, but this team seems a little bit less. I could see how it is good. I just want to see it in action. He has a more prevalent ice weakness. He has no flying resistances, so like we said before, I think a lot of teams have that problem, but very few options that are gonna really exploit that. Unless people want to like put HP flying on their genies. Few teams that have that option. On top of that, Tornadus T is gonna do Tornadus T things. I think Tornadus T is probably one of the better mons in this format. He has an annoying Wall Core, Mega Sableye, Porygon 2, Fable, Slowbro.
It's so beautiful.
True. But it's just, I don't know. I want to get. This is a preemptive. It's a wait and see placement rather than a full on. Here's your confidence boost. Don't let me down type placement.
Well, I am completely okay with giving Hayden a massive confidence boost. I'm not okay with being let down, though. So he can't let me down with this team. Clefable is, in my opinion, probably the best fairy in the format. Even though Sylveon is stronger, Clefable, I think, has more utility with Thunder Waves, Stealth Rocks, Cosmic Power setup. I love that. I think that Clefable is much better with that. I think Slowbro is one of the best bulky waters, along with Milotic and Vaporeon. And then on top of the really fat things he has, the main way that you take out really fat teams like Slowbro and Clefable, if it has Unaware, is with hazards, with toxic spikes. You can't freely spam that against him because he has Mega Sableye. You can't freely spam knockoff because he has things like Mega Sableye that are fine to take knockoff. He has Clefable, which is fine to take knockoff. So you can't knock off Porygon 2's Eviolite very easily. On top of that, tell me what switches into the combination of Breloom, Mach Punch, Force Palm, what have you, Darmanitan, Flare Blitz, Tornadus, Therian's Hurricane, Hitmonlee's Reckless, Unburden, High Jump, or Reckless Unburden. That makes a lot of sense. Reckless High Jump Kick, or Choice Specs Boom Burst. There is nothing in the entire game that can switch into any combination of those two things. So because he has an amazing wall core combined with insane wall breakers, it's going to be so hard for people to prepare for. I can openly say though, I really, really, really hate the fact that he picked Claydol as a rapid spinner when he has Mega Sableye. Whenever people have Mega Sableye, they don't even try for hazards. They really don't. We saw that against Dan. We've seen that against many other teams and many other leagues that have Mega Sableye. You just don't go for hazards. So I think he could have not picked up Claydol and picked up something else from a lower tier that could have built on to, say, a more specially offensive side, because the one thing I can honestly say I dislike is the fact that his special offense is Tornadus Tornadus Therian and Exploud.
I can see how you'd say that. I think maybe he was kind of picked into the corner because he did have the very, very last pick. Claydol was the last Mon select the draft. So maybe he had a different picture than we did. Maybe he thought he absolutely needed that spinner with how maybe some of the coaches were talking about getting spinners. Who knows?
Yeah, I could honestly see that really, because whenever you hear people talking about something that you notice you don't have on your team, it kind of worries you,
Yeah.
especially during a draft.
Overall, you made some very good points. I like everything you said. It's going to be interesting to see how he takes on other teams and how he adapts overall. Like
On
I
top
said,
of that, I forgot to mention one thing. I'm so sorry to cut you off like that, but
yeah,
his team is also really versatile. Breloom doesn't have to be a Focus Sash technician user. He could be the bulky Toxic Heal set with Sub and Spore and things like that. He could be the Swords Dance variant. Mega Sableye could be Calm Mind. It could be Pure Wall. It could be Utility. Hitmonlee could be Banded, could be Scarfed, could be Unburdened. Porygon 2 can be bulky on either side. And Exploud gets Outrage, as Makati showed us. There are things that his team can run that'll be very surprising to people that don't really look into it right away.
the problem is that some coaches don't actually look into their opponent's team, which I think is a killer flaw for many coaches. Now, if coaches, if anyone that watches this, if you take nothing out of this in terms of our opinions, take that out of this. Look into your opponent's move pool. Interesting team. Hope it does we better than I expect. Just as good as you expect.
Yep.
Okay, moving. In our my number three spot, we have the New York Yankees, which, as I've been alluding to, this to me is the best Fire Water Grass core, even though he has a Rotom. But the fact that he has a Rotom mixed with his other two choices make it for me the best Fire Water Grass core. I think that Shady's team is leagues above what he's had in the past. I think him getting Mega Venusaur and then how well he's used his franchise mon Melodic allows him just to effectively rely on those three being his fire water grass core and then having other things to as act as utility such as Hitmontop, Mismagius, and even Granbull and Rhyperior. there there are so many ways that he can plug and play and not have to overall worry about what his opponent's going to bring because he has so many just choices and they're good choices outside of Sharpedo. Sharpedo's not a ghost resist, so outside of Sharpedo, he has no ghost resist. That's the only flaw that I'll say that is heavily predominant. Hopefully, he uses Sharpedo better than it's been used before. Geo didn't give it much light. I didn't give it much light in season one. Jirachi, I think, though, for him is going to be it's going to be one of his main offensive choices each week, and it's a Jirachi, so like it can go special and go physical. It can Doom Desire you. It can Future Sight. It can do a lot of things that you might not want it to do, or might not even expect for that matter. And then on top of that, he has Zygarde, and whether it's the bulky or the careful, get out of my face Dragon Tail set, or it's the just straight up let me punch you right in the teeth set with Outrage and Earthquake and Extreme Speed with D Dance. Shady's team has options, and on top of that, just even the ways that like the stats kind of back up his choices. I think for in terms of every team, he has the least amount of just like prominent weaknesses. He has a good spinner and Hitmontop. He has many tanks and many good utility mons. And like I said, I think he has the best Firegrass core because they're not hampered by his other mons. Like whereas Top is kind of hampered, Arcanine is hampered by the Sand or some other teams. They kind of it's not as effective. Mega Venusaur and Melodic are just gross together. Shame on you, GBA guys, for letting him have all that. I think it's a very good defense, which is complemented by an effective offensive palette of options.
So, while you have been talking about fighting people in the back alley and punching people in the teeth, I'm going to talk about the fact that Shady's first couple seasons were kind of like going to McDonald's and getting a Big Mac. It's good at the time, but whenever you come to season 5 and you get the filet mignon, you know that you have a good draft and it's fantastic. Shows our mindsets, right?
I like it. I'm not
I
gonna.
think I think this is probably one of the drafts that anybody would be proud to have this draft. The only thing I can honestly say I dislike is the Sharpedo pick. I would have rathered him pick up like a low tier defogger or something like that rather than Sharpedo like Flygon or something like that, even though he has Zygarde. I don't know. Like a low tier defogger I think would have been better there because he doesn't really need Sharpedo. But if that's the only flaw that you can say you disagree with one Pokemon in general and everything else you love, that's a really good. Mega Venusaur is fat. It can be offensive. It can be swords dancing. It can be amazing. Jirachi can be wish passing. It can be para flinching. It's so good. Rotom H can be scarf. Like there's so many sets that everything can run. Hitmontop gets counter, so that's awesome with Intimidate. It's Nasty Plum Magus, Alakazam. Like so much of this team, I can just look at and be like, holy poop. I'm so glad I'm not in the GBA and I don't have to face him. I think he will dislike the fact that some of his main walling type options outside of Mega Venusaur or Milotic will be Granbull and Hitmontop, and they don't have reliable recovery. But he has Wish Passing Jirachi, which yes, Wish Passing is hard. But whenever you have, does he have 2 Intimidators?
Yeah.
Yep. So if he Wish Passes on a physical attacker, get an Intimidate off. It's easy to pass a Wish with that. And I think Zygarde is going to be amazing. I'm so excited to see how well he does with this draft. I think it's fantastic.
Not only that, and yes, we didn't talk about play, but I think Shady as someone who is getting better, developing an effective team, and someone who's able to structure properly, just for an entire game rather than for like a specific 3 mons like we might have seen in the past. I think this this team complements that type of play because he has so many options that will cover more than just, and even just his planning will encompass the entire team, the entire 11. Even in the UCL, a lot of the coaches had that type of mindset where they would say, I'm going to plan for all 11 rather than just for what I think are threats. Because I've fallen into that pitfall. Other coaches have fallen into that pitfall. Shady this season, I think, has the best draft in every season, any league that he's been.
Definitely. It's so good. And on top of that, you have to look at the fact that he's used these Mons multiple times in some instances. He used Granbull in the UCL. He used Milotic in the UCL. He also used Rotom Heat. No, he didn't use Rotom Heat in the UCL. But he used some insane offensive, some insane Mons in other leagues and succeeded. So to bring him over here and kind of show what he knows, and he knows how to do what he does well, I think that'll be really, really awesome for him.
So, bringing this 90-minute video almost to an end, we have the
Dear Jesus.
The 1 and 2 pick for our draft rankings being the Boston Red Sox. Nick, the season 2 champion. Nick, the team to beat, in my opinion.
I'm so in love with this team. Okay, for multiple reasons. In case anybody does not know anything about me, Mega Audino is one of my favorite Pokemon in draft-based format. I think it is fantastic. It gets Knockoff, Wish, Heal Bell. It gets everything under the sun that you could ever imagine. Granted, it doesn't hit hard, but it lives forever and is a massive annoyance. Add that on to a Skarmory and a Cresselia. Tell me exactly what is going to do anything to that wall core. Whenever you add the fact that he has some of the best offensive presences, he has some amazing offensive presence in Manaphy, the best setup special attacker, Nidoking, one of the best mixed attackers. Mienshao has the strongest high jump kick outside of a mega. He has Tyrantrum, which has the strongest head smash. He has a Pursuit Trapper. He has a Taunter in Tornadus. He has fantastic options along with fantastic synergy in his team. He doesn't have to bring Skarmory with Defog every single week because he can bring Armaldo with Rapid Spin. If he wants to bring offensive Skarmory one week, he can bring Armaldo with Rocks and Rapid Spin. This team, or he could bring, I've seen defensive Tyrantrum used before and it is absolutely amazing and I can see him doing that type of stuff and it gets Stealth Rocks. It can be really good. And on top of that, if he's going up against a team that is stupid fast, like there are some teams that are really fast. He has Galvantula with Sticky Web. He has multiple Thunder Wavers. He has so much that he can use, and I think that this team, just because of the way that he drafted, and he looks like he went in with a plan. He got everything, like he went down a checklist, and this draft is perfect in my opinion. I don't see any weaknesses that a team specifically has.
Well, I mean, he has rock, steel, fairy, ice, fighting, electric, and fire weaknesses. However, like you said, his team. I watched his post draft breakdown, and he said his first five, they were all planned out. All five of those he had on a checklist that he said that he wanted, and everything else from there was pretty much just icing, for lack of a better description.
He also won a Mega Auditor from the start, he said. So
Okay, so six.
yeah, that's really impressive.
When you talk about a coach who goes in with a plan, I believe that Nick's first 5 or 6 mons were planned out. That means Manaphy, Cresselia, Nidoking, Mienshao, and then even Tyrantrum, Mega Audino. All six of those teams he had specifically looked at to choose. I'm sorry, I think Skarmory was in there somewhere. But all those he chose and that he wanted to get, and he did get. And when you have a coach that from the get go has a plan, comes in, who was a former champ, and then just picks up on a draft like this. Now I put him at number 2 because I think that Miguel just has a team that complements him more, and I think that it's a little bit like better just on paper in terms of what it can do, and it's not like an expansion draft. Nick has the best potential to take on every other team reliably without much fear because he has these options. He has the best setup sweeper in Manaphy. He has a super annoying, glad I don't have to face it, wall core in terms of Mega Audino, Skarmory, and Cresselia. And then on top of that, he has one of the best Mixmons in Nidoking. He has one of I can go on and on. Head Smasher Tyrantrum, Galvantula with Sticky Web, but also Tornadus Eye with Tailwind. Like if his team isn't fast enough, Tornadus Eye makes that team fast enough. Damn it, Prankster Tailwind will be effective.
Not only that, you could actually kind of see him running a semi rain team if he runs Prankster Rain Dance with Tornadus with the Damp Rock. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah,
I could be
Swift
stupid.
Armaldo, and then he has Manaphy.
Manaphy.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good
and
point
then
too.
And Galvantula having 100% accurate Thunder there.
Yep, that's a good point as well. Overall his team is just it's nice to see like these drafts turn out the way they do, because when you're analyzing them and you're looking at how you might use it, you can understand like just that coach, it has a leg up already with what he has to work with. And even then, Sneasel I think is a very underrated pick. Yes, it's a discount Weavile, but on the same token, it still hits hard with knockoff and pursuit. Icicle Crash, it gets fake out, Ice Shard, low kick. There's so many things that he can do with Sneasel that I think other coaches would overlook. And because of
Yep.
that, I think just Nick, and I think it's going to come down to like Nick and Miguel and even Shady, just when the season pans.
This draft in general, since we're kind of on the end of it, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that everybody drafted very well. I think there were some that were high above the others, but this draft in general was, in my opinion, one of the most successful drafts that the GBA has ever had.
Yeah.
Nobody you can actually look at and you can say that they got shafted in any shape, way, or form. You can't say, well, I don't know what the heck he plans to do with this. because every team has something that can be amazing. And I think that specifically makes this draft just perfect and over the top.
That's a great point, and we should have said that from the get go because I'm sure like 40 to 60% of our audience is already. But yeah, this draft was the best draft in GBA history. There's not a team out there that that didn't get Escavalier in their first round. So overall, it's this season's going to be incredible. This season's going to be so much fun to watch. As much as I don't want to watch 48-minute narrations, some of those battles are going to be off the.
This is going to be an awesome season. I'm so looking forward to this season.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this at 2x or 1.5x speed on a week. As always, leave your comments, concerns, and disgruntled opinions in the comment section down below. I'll be sure to answer you and listen, I guess. Kelly?
Thank you guys so much for watching it. It means a lot to the channel, to the GBA in general, that you guys actually care about the league. It's awesome that we have such a following for it. And I honestly want to thank all of you guys because the GBA wouldn't be where it is without the following that it has. So thank you all so much.
We will be here each week with your power rankings. Look forward to that. And until then, we are back after November 15th. I think the Thursday after November 15th, we'll bring you guys the power rankings. Look forward to that when it comes out. And until then, peace out, bitches.
Bye.